All right. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Unfortunately, my mic's not working, and so you'll have to listen to me through my phone. So just raise your hand if you have any questions, because I'm going to jump to a share screen. Sorry for all the technical difficulties, but I'll have to listen to you from my phone and not through the actual Zoom. So you might have to unmute and bear with me. But as long as you can hear me okay, I'm going to move on. All right, here we go. All right, thanks guys for joining our dot loop class. I am going to start kind of at the beginning of dot loop, and we're going to work our way all the way up to some advanced stuff that's going to help you be able to save some time. Can everyone see the share screen also? Just want to make sure I don't have any other technical difficulties out there in the Zoom world. We're all good?
Yes.
Somebody say yes? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So I think most of you probably know you're going to create your loops by logging on to command first, but I don't want to turn this into a command class, because once you get started with your loop, to be able to turn in your compliance and to be able to do commission and be able to get paid, you'll want to actually start your opportunities in command. And then once you go through that process, and anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, schedule your meeting with Lynn and she'll show you how to do that. You'll go to something that says go to transaction, which then takes you right from command into dot loop. And then you work your loop from there. Or if you're in a pinch and you're hurrying to write an offer, which happens to us sometimes, and you just start your loop, that's okay. You can connect the loops later. But I didn't want to show you that here, because suddenly if I log on to command, it becomes a command training class instead of dot loop. So, all right. So we're just going to jump right into a few different things. I'm going to make you guys a little bit smaller so I can see. So I can't see you guys on the screen. So if you're raising your hand or anything, I won't be able to see you. So go ahead, just unmute yourself and ask any questions as we go. Across the top here, there's some different things. One thing I want to point out before I show you how to create a loop is what's in templates. So let's just go in templates. Remembering those agents from Legacy, I'm an agent at Legacy, so this is going to be the Legacy contract. Agents at Living and Elevate, your templates are going to look a little bit different. Same thing, we're all using dot loop. It's just our contracts are different for each brokerage, right? So just don't get thrown by something that says Legacy on it. All right, so here in templates, there's a lot of different things. I think a lot of people don't realize you also have an inbox. So this is one of the things I wanted to show you. So for those of you who are new or not, using dot loop yet, or people who have been using dot loop, this will be something that I think is a lifesaver and saves a lot of time. When you click on inbox, we all have our own unique dot loop email address. So mine is gina.ferrer.5@upload.dotloop.com. We all have that. All you have to do is click on your inbox and templates. Why would that be easy to know? Well, because if I scan something to myself, let's say a pre-approval letter, because I have a hard copy of a pre-approval letter because my client handed it to me at the showing, let's say, or wherever or whatever the document is, I happen to have a hard copy and I don't have it online and I need to get it into dot loop. Rather than emailing it to yourself and pulling it in that way, which I'll show you, you can just directly email it to this dot loop and then it's going to be in your inbox here. And then you can pull it into your loop. I promise for those of you who haven't used dot loop yet, this all sounds extremely like what the heck is she talking about, but it'll all come together as you're using dot loop and it'll make sense. So like I have my copier at my office have my personal email as well as my dot loop email because it's just as quick and easy for me to scan it right into my dot loop because it's ready to go and it's right there. So another thing that I would want to get into my dot loop that might be a hard copy is listing paperwork. Buyers, I use dot loop to write the offer. I don't even know when the last time I've written an offer that was on paper for a buyer. Listings, however, you go out to the appointment, you're there, they like what you have to say, they like you've agreed on price and terms, and they're ready to list, I'm not going to say, and now I'm going to go home and I'm going to send you the documents in .loop. It just doesn't make any sense. I'm sitting there in front of them at their house. We may as well sign the documents right here. Then I need to get those into .loop. So that's a real easy way to get them right into your .loop account. So I wanted to mention that. Each market center has their own list of different things that are in templates. So all your documents are here, buyer docs, miscellaneous, listings, all of that. I wanted to draw your attention to a couple of things here at the bottom. Clauses is one of them. So clauses are some of the things that you say a lot when you're typing. So for me, I say Keller Williams Legacy Group Realty a lot on paperwork. That's a clause. I use Stonegate Title. Here it's American Title. So you would put that in there. At Elevate, who the title company you use is there all the time, put that information in. My name, my phone number, my email address, different things that I type up all the time, I put in clauses. This way, when I am on a contract, all I have to do is start typing. As soon as I put a G on anything, my name pops up and it just goes right in. So that makes it quick and easy. And why do we want it to be quick and easy? Well, as we know, those of us showing houses out there right now, sometimes you're at the showing at 5 p.m. and the agent says, you have until 6 o'clock to get me your offer. That's the deadline. And you're actually at the house still. So you need to get that offer written as fast as possible. So all those little minutes that can save you time is really important. Doesn't seem like it today, but I promise you, when it's Saturday night and you're about to go to a wedding and you're dressed and ready to go, and then your buyer calls you and says, I know I told you this morning I didn't want to make an offer, but now in fact I do, and you've got 10 minutes to get out the door, and now you've got to write an offer really fast. So all those kinds of things will save you time later. Another thing that I do is create my own folders. So up here in this toolbar, it says new folder. So what might I want to add to that new folder? So you can create a new folder and you can name it whatever you want. For the sake of today, I'm just going to call it Test Buyer Docs. So now I have this folder and I need to put stuff in there. So I think I mentioned yesterday on Dominate Your Week, I take a look at everybody's offers as they're writing their first offers just to kind of help them out, proofing it. Janice does the documents here at Living and Sarah helps with the documents at Elevate. We proof them for you just to make sure that your offer is as good as it can be in regards to mistakes that could be made, perhaps. Maybe you didn't check something that needed to be checked, or a lot of mistakes that I see on paperwork is that loan commitment can be made in 5 days. Well, loan commitment means that it's almost ready to close. That doesn't happen in 5 days. That happens usually in 30 days. So little things like that. So when we're looking over the documents, one of the things that I catch all the time, in particular for people that are writing their first 1 to 2 offers, is they pull over all the documents that are in a template. So for example, the market centers put these different packets together in here, so buyer documents. In the buyer document folder and templates is a lot of documents, and there's a lot of documents you don't need. So for example, in there, you're going to see, well, I'll show you them. That's the right one. That right here. So if you did this, select all of these documents and start putting everything into your loop, you're going to find, if I don't need an appraisal gap, why do I want that in my loop? I don't. We don't even need the COVID document anymore. If I'm not writing an escalation clause, do I need it in my loop? It also doesn't make sense to have a home warranty waiver and a home warranty application. If I'm asking for a home warranty, do I also need a home warranty waiver? Probably not. You are either a partner with the title company or you're not a partner with the title company. So you don't need an ABA that says partner and one that says non-partner. You don't need lead-based paint in a lead-based pamphlet if the house was built in 1992. it wouldn't make sense that you would need a large print and a regular size print purchase agreement. Or removal of contingencies, and I'm not going to continue. But as you can see, there's a lot of documents in here. So imagining the first time writing an offer, and you pull all these documents into your loop, it looks like a lot of stuff to be filled out when you've already, 50% of it didn't need to come into your loop. So that's why when I say create your own folder, which we'll go back to for my test folder here, you're going to then just put the documents that you want in there. So then I would go back in that sales folder and select the most used documents that I know that I'm going to need. So I am a partner with my title company, so I'm going to include the partner one. I'm going to include an agency disclosure. I don't really need an addendum to my purchase agreement right now because what am I writing an addendum about at this point? I need an anti-fraud. I don't need an appraisal gap, but I do need a buyer's agency and a consumer guide. I'm not writing an escalation clause. I don't really need escrow instructions yet because our transaction isn't together. My buyer's not going to ask for a home warranty, so we'll go ahead and we'll do the waiver. We're not using Keller Mortgage, so I don't need that ABA. We're going to say the house was built in 2000, so I don't need that. I like the regular size print purchase agreement because it's less pages. And I don't need any of these. And again, would it make sense that we need a vacant land purchase agreement if I'm writing an offer on a house? No. So now my own folder that I labeled test has everything that I need regularly to write an offer. And then I also created one for listings. So my listing docs are right here. And so create a folder, add the documents that you're going to need into it. So this way you don't pull the things you don't need into your loop. And I'll show you how to do that here in a second. Let's see. Also, open up one of these documents. You can then start filling them out. So I already know on that one. Let's see. So when it's in templates, you can also start to fill it out so that your information's on it. And I'm trying to think of what document would already be filled out. Must not be in the sellers. Look. You can do certain things with documents when they're in templates and it'll just save there. Nope. I had new documents, so I didn't. Nonetheless, in your templates, that you see when I pull it over. When you have some extra time, you can go in and put some information that's saved there. So here's when I start typing my name. See how my name popped up? Then my phone number will pop up and my email address. And so when I hit save on this, it's going to be already filled out. So when I pull that over into my loop, I won't have to fill it out ever again. There's little things like that that you can do to save yourself time of your documents that are in templates in your own personal folder. You can't do that in the master template folder, but you can in your own. It's just a little bit of a time saver. You can't fill out things like the agency disclosure. Why? Well, because we don't exactly know what section. It could be 2 agents in different brokerages. It could be agents in one brokerage, whatever. We can't do that there. Questions about creating your own folders and templates before I move on to loops? Does that make sense why you might do that ahead of time? It's a time saver later. All right, we'll go back to loops. All right, so I've got bajillions of loops. By the way, there's no loop that can be deleted. You can't ever make a mistake. You've got an endless supply of loops for .loop. So you're never going to hit a limit. So practice, create test loops for yourself. You have an endless supply of loops. And they also can never be deleted. So when someone says, oh my gosh, my loop has disappeared, it hasn't. You just either have some kind of a filter on, or you archived it and didn't realize it. Same with your documents. When you are in your loop and you're like, I don't know what happened to that document, it must have got deleted. You cannot delete in .loop. Nothing can ever be deleted. There's no trash. There's archive. Archive means I can still pull it out of archive, but there is no trash. So I'm going to go ahead and create a loop. So once you get started, the first thing you're going to do is hit add loop. I don't like merging loops. So as you'll see, as I start typing up, I'm just going to make a test link loop. It starts to pull loops all over the country that start out with that address. If that happened to be the loop that you were looking for, meaning that that was someone local, you know, that had that listing, if you clicked on that, it would merge your loop with theirs. I just personally don't like doing that, so I just bypass it. So I'm just going to say, what's the zip code here? In 139. And so I'm just bypassing that by hitting enter, enter, enter. All right. So I've created that loop, and now I'm going to view it. By the way, guys, this is another thing I catch from everyone the first time or a couple of times occasionally. If you ever log onto your .loop and it's not red and black and it's powder blue, you are not logged on to your premium .loop account. You are logged on to a free version like what the client sees. So when we share documents with a buyer or a seller, they don't see the red and black Keller Williams premium account. They see the free version, which allows them access to sign. It's powder blue. So if you see .loop powder blue, you've logged into the wrong thing. So like some people will say, oh my gosh, what do you mean? I went to .loop.com. But did you type in your right login information? Usually what happens is this. When you send an offer to another agent, and then they send you back a counter offer, and they don't send it back from your loop. They send it back from their loop. It will come to you like you're a non-Keller Williams agent if they don't send it to the right email address. And then I can always tell whenever I'm looking at someone's paperwork and we can't figure out why it's powder blue, it's because the other agent attached it to their loop and they didn't give you the right permissions and that kind of a thing. So if you ever see powder blue, it's because you're not logged onto the right thing. So we need to get you bypass that and onto the right account. It happens all the time, so don't worry. Just call one of us and we'll walk you through how to get past it. All right. So I'm going to, where'd my address go? I'm going to say transaction type is purchase. And the reason that you might select things up here, and I'm going to say pre-offer, it's for filtering purposes later. So I always change that. The very first thing that I ever do is come down to people and add my clients. Here's why. You only get one chance to autofill documents, one. If you accidentally open a document before agreeing to autofill, or it will say, do you want to autofill, and you accidentally say yes, and you don't have your people in, it doesn't know who is the buyers, and then you'll never get a chance to autofill their information again. Otherwise, you have to delete the documents and start over. So and it's very touchy sometimes, so I would add my people first. So I'm just going to randomly type somebody's name in here and pick. And I'm going to say Sarah is a buyer and hit add person. So for the sake of saving time, I'm just going to say I have one buyer. The next thing I'm going to do, and for those at Legacy, you're going to add me to your loop. For those at Living, you're going to add Janice to your loop. And for those at Elevate, you're going to add Sarah to your loop. The reason that you want to add us to your loop is this way, when you have questions, we can have access. But here's what you need to do. As you're adding me to the loop, you need to use my correct .loop email address. So when adding me, my .loop email, if I won't let me. Oh yeah, well, nope, yep, here it is. My .loop email address is my Yahoo. It's not my KW. If you send me a loop to KW, it's going to come powder blue, and that's how I know that you've sent it to the wrong place. So the main thing that you need to know whenever you add me, Janice, or Sarah to your loop is you have to check this box right here. This is very important, so write this down. You have to check the add to my team. Otherwise, we can't see the documents. You don't need to share documents with us because that gives us full access of your loop so that we can see and help you with your documents. You never, ever, ever want to add anybody else to your team. The only other person that you would add to a team is eventually if you have an admin person, then you would add them to your team. That would give someone the opportunity to go into your documents and actually, so when you add me to your team, that means I am you in .loop. I can see your documents. If I need to make a change to your document on your behalf, I can. Let's say you're on vacation and you need me to share something with somebody. I can get into your loop and I can do that for you. And so can Janice here and Sarah at Elevate, right? The role doesn't make a difference. Here's a mistake that people make. They think by giving us an admin role that suddenly gives us access to the loop. This is just for name purposes. That does not mean anything. So what you're giving us in regards to role is actually other. And then go ahead and hit add person, which I'm not going to do because it's my own loop. The next person that I add would be the listing agent. So this is a buyer transaction. So I'm going to add Kevin McCauley. I don't want to add the listing agent on my team, of course. It's a listing agent. And add person. So now it's ready to go. When I write the offer, my client's in there. You guys have added us in there, and then I've added the listing agent. All right, so now I'm ready to come back up and start adding documents. I don't want it to say folder just because I'm picky like that. These three little gray dots over here, it does a lot of things. So I go down to rename, and I call this buyer docs. In a listing folder, I would call it listing docs. And then if I have multiple offers, each folder that I add, because you can add multiple folders here, I would say offer number 1 and the agent's name, offer number 2 and the agent's name. So you can create as many folders, and you do want to use different folders for different groups of paperwork. If I'm writing an offer on this house, really for me, the only thing I need to know is buyer documents. It's really listings that I'm splitting up. I don't want my listing documents in the same folder as I want my offers I get on that listing. And then if you get multiple offers, you don't want all of those documents running together in one big folder. It's really hard to kind of keep them separated. So that's why I add new folders and label them offer number 1, but the agent's name, because in your mind, you're going to start to forget which agent represented offer number 1, 2, 3, or 25. All right, adding documents. So there's a couple different ways you can add documents into .loop. You can go to email. So maybe I got a pre-approval letter from the lender and they emailed it to me. When I click on that, I have to hit copy to clipboard. And then I log on to my email. I open it up. And then I just paste this into the forward to. So that way, and I don't have a PDF, I don't think I can forward in right now in my email. Well, maybe I do. Let's just go to my email. It has to be a PDF. It can't be a PDF in here. I don't want to waste time searching. Wait, here we go. Got a pre-approval letter. Perfect. JPEG cannot go into .lib. It has to be a PDF. So here's a pre-approval letter. I'm going to hit forward, paste, send, and then get out of my email, back. Oops. Let's go. Lost my loop. And there's my PDF. Well, a lot of stuff came over. So within that, so the lender sent the buyer do's and don'ts for getting pre-approved and some other information. All I really want is the pre-approval letter. So these three little dots in here, there's a couple things you can do. Archive is one of them. So now that got put into my loop from the PDF, from the email when I added documents. Does that make sense? Another way of adding documents is browsing. So maybe I downloaded that and then I pulled it in that way. So like here's an RPD, pull that in. And now that's here. So that brings up a good point. Your property disclosure or any other documents that would be in supplements in the MLS aren't just going to magically appear in your loop. You have to go on the MLS and download them onto your computer or scan them to yourself and then get them into .loop this way. The other way of adding documents is by going to templates, and I'm just going to go to my test loop. I'm going to select all because I know I weeded out all the things I don't need, and I'm going to hit copy. And now I've got everything I need in my loop. So if I click add documents, that goes away. So whenever I'm on the phone with someone and they say, I don't see where those blue bubbles are, well, that's because it was hiding. So it's right there. Because I'm picky, I like to rearrange the order of things in my loop. So I want my pre-approval at the top, so you can click on it and drag it. Just don't drop it over top of something because it will replace it. You want to drop it over. Then I want my purchase agreement, my agency disclosure, and then I want my RPD and my ABA, my home warranty waiver. And so the reason I'm ordering it like this is because you do not need to send the listing agent your anti-fraud. You do not need to send the listing agent your exclusive buyer's agency agreement or your consumer guide. They don't care. Those aren't documents that have anything to do with the offer. You need to send them these documents. So that's why I like to keep them in a certain order. All right, so now I've got everything in the right order, and then I can select all by clicking that because I want them to autofill. So when I click, if you see here, nothing's checked, there's nothing up here highlighted. The second that I even check one document, this pops up. So I'm going to check that. I'm going to uncheck my pre-approval letter just because their personal information is on there. And now I'm going to hit open. And when I do that, it's going to start to autofill these documents for me. And I do want it to autofill. And I do want it to say the address. I said was Main Street, Cleveland, Ohio. I don't care about all the rest of this stuff, just the main information, and then poof, it's there. All right, before I go on through the contract, and I don't want to turn this into a contract class, this is a legacy contract. I don't have access to Living and Elevate's paperwork because I'm not actually an agent in those brokerages. So we aren't going to make this a contract class, just .loop. So as we're filling out the paperwork and we're going through, One of the things that me, Janice, and Sarah are going to tell you guys when you're writing your first offers is find out from your buyer what they want to offer. And the questions that you need to ask them are on the purchase agreement. So know your purchase agreement. How do you know that? Well, you go to the contract classes for one thing, but also practice. Create test loops and look at the paperwork and work your way through it. At Legacy, I created a in templates and dot loop, and I'm working on Living and Elevate doing the same. I created something called PC Sample Buyer Packet and PC Sample Listing Packet. And what I did for each of those was filled out all of the paperwork in its entirety with side notes explaining why you put what where. And so I'm working on getting that done both at Living and Elevate as well, because if you didn't, for some reason, have someone answer the phone when you had a question about writing paperwork, which doesn't typically happen, but if it did, you would be able to get through this and see why you're filling it out where. But the main questions that you need to know from your buyer is, what are we offering? What are you putting down? What kind of loan? All the things that the purchase agreement asks that has blanks, that information we don't know. We get that from our buyer. Some things the buyer doesn't know that you need to find out from their lender is, I mean, is there a time where a buyer says, I don't know how much I'm putting down? Silly as it sounds, yes. So that's a question then for their lender. So having good communication with whoever their lender is really important. So that's why having a really solid lending partner is important too. So I need to know for my purchase agreement how much they're putting down. I need to know how much their closing costs are and if they're asking the seller to pay closing costs. I need to know what their loan type is. I need to know how many days we need to close. It's typically 30, but can we do it sooner or do we need a little extra time? Those are things that we can't just come up with that the lender has to tell us. And of course, always it happens that it's Saturday night at 8 o'clock and your buyer who you've told to get pre-approved 25 times has not, and now they found the house of their dreams, and then we don't have answers to those questions nor a pre-approval letter. So those are the things we can be counseling our buyers about at a buyer, consultation. All right, so as we start filling this out, we're gonna get some information off of the auditor's site. So or the MLS, the parcel number has to be filled out, what the purchase price is, how much their earnest money is. The title company is always holding the earnest money. Keller Williams does not hold earnest money. Not any of the 3 market centers hold earnest money. It's the title company that holds the earnest money. We have to actually do the math, what's their down payment, and then the amount to be financed unless it's cash. 30 days goes here for loan commitment unless they're on some kind of a fast track program. I know Cross Country runs a fast track pre-approval, so sometimes that can be faster there. And then you're just filling in the blanks. Most of this information, like here, is going to come from the MLS. Closing date. Here's another important thing. We only have one buyer in this situation. I don't need 2 buyer initials, but also it says buyer consigned. But let's just pretend like there is 2 buyers, and then it says buyer. Let me tell you what happens. I'm going to already tell you so you can learn by mistakes that have been made by others before you. If you leave this saying buyer, as you can see when I hover over it, it says the buyer can sign it, either buyer. If there are 2 buyers, it's still going to say that. When you share these documents with your buyer or buyers, it's going to go to their individual emails. It has to. People cannot share an email for .loop. I get that all the time. Well, we share an email. You have to have an individual email because .loop only recognizes one person. You're not physically signing this. You're clicking. You're clicking. So when you click there, it's going to say who you are based on the email that's attached to you. So if they have one email, they can have 2. And they can create a second one if they actually don't have one. You want to assign these fields. I see this all the time when I'm proofing your guys' offer. Because what happens is buyers get click happy. Or sometimes they're doing it from their phone, from their kid's soccer game, and they don't even realize that they hovered and clicked at both places. And then what happens is, now you really don't have a fully signed contract if buyer 1 signed both spots. That means buyer 2 did not. and it could easily get missed because it looks like it was initials. So that's why you want to click in the center. And when you click in the center, this little box that says assign to comes up. And then you want to scroll down to that person's name. So it shows their initials in the center of that initial. If I don't have two buyers, I don't want two initials. I get rid of it. You can leave this here for the listing agent when you share this, that you don't have to assign fields for the listing agent's clients. They'll do it themselves. So you're filling out all the paperwork. Same thing. Page 2, click, assign it to your buyer. Click again, and then there's this red X, and then it deletes it. And then you're just clicking through. Here's one that people tend to miss, which is right here. Sign. And then delete. And every place that there's a place to check or click, you're just clicking. I will also caution you, trying to do this from on your phone or an iPad, it can be done, but it's very touchy. I wouldn't recommend it. So you're going through all the paperwork, filling it out as much as you can. You're assigning those fields. You also want to assign the signature field. That one. On the purchase agreement, I also then type in the seller's name. Here's why. If the listing agent gets the paperwork and their seller is going to accept your offer as it is, does anybody know what happens if this is blank and the listing agent has to type in their client's name? What happens?
It wipes everything out of the contract.
Correct. It deletes the buyer's signatures on everything, because it looks like something on the document's been changed. So just simply by putting the seller's name on here is going to be like changing the price even. We wouldn't want your buyer's signature to stay intact if someone were changing the price, right? So therefore, you want to add the seller's names there, as well as, and you see my stuff already pre-printed because I had that on my template. And then the listing agent, some of his information came over. Even if he's in my same brokerage, I still have to fill out this section. So guys, I see this a lot when I'm proofing offers. This is blank. Even if this person, which is in my brokerage, I still have to put Keller Williams over here too and fill that out. If it's not fitting up here to the top, I can shrink that. And then type in the information that's already over here. Make sense? So same here, I want to put seller's name here, and then I want to put there. If we're two agents and two brokerages, we're going to go with this section. I don't want to turn this into a contracts class, but I see this mistake all the time. We either fill on the agency disclosure, you are selecting only one, Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, or Roman numeral 3. It is not all three. It is not two of the three. It wouldn't make any sense because they say something different. Transaction involving two agents in two different brokerages, or transaction involving two agents in the same brokerage, or dual agency. It can't be all three. It's one. So you'll fill that out. You'll again need to assign the field to your client. If there's not two, delete the second one, or just assign both if there's two. Okay. So now when we get to the property disclosure, this is the one that I pulled in from my browse. I browsed to it because let's pretend like I went on the MLS and I downloaded it to my computer because that's how I was going to get it into Dotloop. I don't want to print it and scan it to myself. If I can download it and then upload it in this way, and those are just basic computer skills, guys. So if you don't know what I'm saying when I say to do that, I would Google a computer training class, or Lynn can help you with those kind of things. This is now what we call a flat PDF. Because I brought it in as a printed download, okay? It wasn't already in .loop because it was somebody else's document. You can see right here that this seller, they wet signed this document. This wasn't done in .loop. It wasn't shared with me in .loop. It was actually on the MLS. I downloaded it to my computer and I brought it into .loop, how I showed you guys when I browsed to it. So that you can see, and the reason I'm pointing this out strongly is because as you can see right here, there are no initials. So we have to add them. You have to go up to the top here to add initial, and then you're going to drag it to where it's going to go. And see how it just says initial? You have to assign that field. It doesn't know who. If there's 2, then you drag 2. If there's not, then you move on. Every single page has to have an initial on it. And if you leave it just there like that, your buyer will not be able to initial it. It's not assigned. It's so important. Let's not forget the assign. And again, I stress that because I see it every single day when I'm proofing offers. Every page has to have it. And then the last page is going to have an add signature. And you're just dragging, you see how you're just dragging it around and dropping it. Guys, I'm not picky about this, but some people are. If you don't think it fits there and you want to make it smaller, you can hover around and you see once you get that arrow, you can shrink it or you can make it bigger. So you can do a lot of things like that. And you're going to assign that field. Just for the sake of putting it on here, not that you would ever do that for this document, adding text is the same. If I needed to add a text to anything, I'm just dropping it. Then I can make it bigger like this. And then I just start typing there. Again, not that you would ever do that on an agency disclosure, but I just wanted to show you that there's an add text box there. If this were a lead-based paint disclosure and you needed to add a checkbox to check the waive inspection, add checkbox is right here. You drag, you drop, and then you check it. That's another one that is missed all the time when I'm proofing offers. People forget to add the waived or do a lead-based paint inspection. You have to add that checkbox and then check the one that they told you, which most people waive. And then again, you're just filling out these boxes, buyer and seller's name, sign the field, same thing, same thing. I'll point something out that I do. This is more contract later than .loop related. On the buyer's agency, if you haven't gotten one signed with your buyer yet, like you've had a couple of appointments with them and you've done a buyer consultation, but they haven't signed one, now is your chance to get it. Do you think it's a good idea to put the address of the property here when it says general description of property location? No, because then you only represent them on that property. So what I write is residential, is that right? Property. So that means now, and don't get all wordy with it, guys. I see this again, residential property in Stark County, residential property in Summit County, residential property. You don't have to put the county. Then that means that they decide to go over the county line, you've just disregarded your document. Just 2 words, residential property. And then today's date. And then you're going to, I say go 6 months. So I'm going to add a date here. Day. And then I'm going to go 6 months from today here. If you put the address of the property here, that means you only represent them for that property. If your offer doesn't get accepted, you no longer have an agency agreement signed, right? Let me also mention this. Down here where it says signature, once the buyer, and we have to sign this particular document, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let me assign it to myself so that you can see once you share the document with your client what that looks like. So that's what a dot loop signature looks like. And as you can see, it is dated and time stamped. Because of that, you don't have to also waste the time adding dates to all your documents. I see people wasting all kinds of time putting dates all over the place. You see how nicely that just fit my name and the date right over top of date. So you don't need to add dates where it's going to be a signature. Even the initials is dated. Okay. So now I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to go back to my loop. And now it's time to share the documents with my buyer. I don't need to share back their pre-approval letter. So I'm going to hit all and deselect that. And then I'm going to hit share. And it already knows that my buyer has 26 fields to complete. And so right here, these are the permissions. So when I say to you, make sure the permission says can sign or whatever, let's just show you what those permissions are. The can view, that would be like, we have a fully signed contract and now I'm sending the documents to the lender. Or we have a fully signed contract and I'm sending the documents to the title company. Or we countered back and forth and now my buyer has initialed the changes and I'm sending back the fully signed contract to the other agent. They don't need to edit again. Now they just need the view. View just means there's nothing else to be done to the paperwork. But my client needs the can sign. I'm not going to share it with her because she's going to wonder why I'm sending her paperwork. Once she signs it, then I'm going to share, only once she signs it, I'm going to share it with the listing agent. When I share it with a listing agent, I want the can edit in private. That gives the listing agent permission to make adjustments to the contract as you counter offer. Again, I'm not going to share that. Questions about the sharing? Once you share documents, by the way, right here where it says not shared is going to turn orange and it's going to say waiting on others. Once they sign it, it's going to say signed. You have to refresh the page. So if like someone says to you, okay, I'm signing. Oh, I've signed. Have you gotten it yet? And you're like, well, I'm looking at the screen and it still says waiting on others. You might have to refresh your page because it didn't come through yet. A couple other things to know. Don't dismiss these little 3 gray dots. They do a lot of great things. You can make a copy. So maybe now I want these documents in a different folder. So I can click make a copy. And maybe I want them to all be a flat PDF now because I don't want them to be .loop documents anymore for some reason. Or I still want them to be a .loop document, whatever. I can hit to loop and then I can select what loop I want them to go to. Let's just select that one, new folder, copy. And so now they didn't move from here, they just copied into another folder. There are times where you need things to hop folder to folder or loop to loop. What else here? Downloads. So Maria, she wrote an offer yesterday on a property and the listing agent said, do not share the documents in .loop. I don't like .loop, I don't use .loop, you have to send me a PDF. So she wrote the offer, of course, in .loop and was going to print them all and scan them to herself to get the PDF. So I said, nope, just check the box next to everything and hit download. And it downloads to your computer and then you can just email the PDF that way. It doesn't come up very often, but there are an occasional time where an agent doesn't want to use .loop and that's simply because they don't know how to. Or maybe their brokerage doesn't provide it. That could be another reason. Or you can fax. You can also always see the history. So if you archive something, so let's just, for the sake of that, let me archive this purchase agreement. So now it's gone. And you're like, oh my gosh, what happened to my purchase agreement? You can always show archive too. So let me uncheck and hit show archive. And then down here are the things that I archived. And then I can go over here on archive and it comes back up. Or now it's here again, right there. All right, questions. I know we started late and I'm going a couple minutes over, so I'll just open it up for questions on anything. So those on Zoom, those in the room, tell me what questions you have. Or anything in particular that you struggle with dot loop that you'd like for me to go over.
Dot loop within the command.
So you can log on to dot loop a couple different ways. The only time I access dot loop through command is when I start a loop, but then I just access it from my computer, dotloop.com, to get into the loop. I only access it when I'm creating the loop the first time.
How do we acquire the email that's necessary for us to utilize? They assign you the email?
Yep, so you should have, when you got onboarded, you would have gotten a packet that shows you all of your logins and email addresses. Did you get that? Did you get onboarded yet?
Yeah, but we were using they were using the software.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I would check with Jordan on that and see, because you're going to need a piece of paper that shows you what is my .loop login and password, and what is my command login and password. And then I would schedule an appointment to meet with Lynn, and she'll walk you through how to use command and then how to use command to connect you to your loop. But you do not, so good question, you don't access command to access .loop, no. Only when you're creating your loop the first time if you want it to be connected. It just makes it easy later when you're turning compliance in, meaning you have to turn in documents to the office so they can make sure everything is signed before you can get paid.
Was she transferred, will any of your former passwords change? Or everything stay the same?
I'm not sure. That would be an admin question for probably Jordan or Jill. Yep. I would assume that they could stay the same, but I'm guessing what happens is you're going to get a temporary password for everything that you can then go in and change.
Now everything's it's just a command issue that I'm really with getting on MLS, and that was so far.
Oh, okay. Yep, in command too. So like you're going to get a generic password that you can go in and change to something that is easier to remember. What else? Anybody on Zoom?
We got a phone number for tech support, right?
Yep. You can. Perfect. Did everyone go away? I can't tell what's happening here. Let me do a stop share.
Gina.
Nope. Yep. Okay. Any questions? I can hear you. Go ahead.
This is Mary. I have a question. Since I'm on a team with Lori, if I were to create this document, do I still need to add you, or just Lori double checks everything?
So that's a great question. So when you're on a team, you do have to add your team members' names because they have access, and you're obviously co-listing and working out things in regards to who gets the production. The only way you have to add me to your loop, Mary, or anyone who is on a team, because we do have people in coaching that are on teams, would be as if for some reason we would be looking at your paperwork for something. So like Mary, if Lori was on vacation and you needed my help with something in .loop on a contract, and I needed to open up the paperwork and look at it, then you would need to add me to the loop so I can have access. And then you would have to add me to the agency disclosure. We have, in the state of Ohio, if you're letting an agent in your office review documents, you have to disclose that. So you don't have to put me on your agency disclosure if I'm never going to put my eyes on that paperwork.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Yep.
Can you go back later and add?
Absolutely. Yep. You can just go to add document from templates and pull it in. And because sometimes you have to add things later too. So for example, you've gotten a deal together and you've done your home inspection, and now you're adding a removal of contingency to your loop. That's a document that you're going to pull in later. You're going to need escrow instructions to the title company. That you don't need when you're writing the offer, but you will need that if you get the deal together. So escrow instructions are how the title company knows how to pay you or pay Keller Williams. So that's something that you're going to add to the loop later. Yep. Anybody else?
So we can practice that.
I would do test loops, do as many as you want, play with it, add Janice and I so we can look at it if you have questions about it. Absolutely.
And so every time we do one, just add you, Janice, and Sarah.
No. So what I'm sorry. So thank you for saying that. So at Living, you're adding Janice.
Okay.
At Elevate, you're adding Sarah. At Legacy, you're adding me. Yep.
If she's not available, Janice not available.
Mm-hmm.
She's out of town.
Yep.
Then can I add?
You can just call me and I can work you through it.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And then the chat too.
In the
So
chat, right.
absolutely. Everybody's there to kind of help out with any of those general questions for sure. But yeah, I mean, there's usually always somebody to help with that. And once you walk through it, you know, a couple of times, it all starts to make sense. And we do, so like I did our multiple offer workshop in Canton 2 months ago. I did it last month, or actually this month, in Medina for our Elevate office. And so I'm going to be adding that in for Living next month. By next month, I mean July, because I already did June's calendar. So our multiple offer workshop is where we go tour a vacant house locally, and we walk through a buyer appointment and a listing appointment, and we role play and script out what that's going to look like. The second day we come back and we have our preferred lender here across country give us fake pre-approval letters. And then you guys group up teams of 2, and then you write an offer on the house that we toured. And the second hour, we then present that offer to a fake seller. So at the end of the 2 days, you'll have walked through what a whole buyer appointment looks like from start to finish, meaning viewing the house and writing the offer, as well as a whole listing appointment from viewing the house to negotiating the offer.
What day are you doing it on?
I don't know. I haven't done July's calendar yet. So
You'll let us
I will let you guys know. Yep. So we'll do that up and coming here too. Yeah. All right, guys. Let me also throw this little plug in there too. I put it in the chat again yesterday. Make sure that you put the save the date on your calendar for June 29th. I believe it's a Thursday. We are going to Cross Country's corporate headquarters in downtown Cleveland. It's an exclusive PC event that they're putting on for us. June 29th, check-in is at 10:30. More information about the invitation will be coming, but I just wanted you to mark your calendars. Check-in will be at 10:30. We will have a lunch and a $25 headshot clinic. So if you don't have an updated headshot and you'd like to have one, it's a great location for photos. Then we'll have lunch and 2 CE classes. There'll be a 1-hour CE on social media, and then there'll be a title CE after that. So you'll walk away with 2 CE for free. And then we'll have happy hour after that.
the whole day?
So it's from 10:30 till about 3.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah. And it's a beautiful location, and it's a great chance for all 3 market centers to get together. It's just people from PC and networking, free CE, $25 headshot, lots of eating and drinking. So it'll be a really fun day. More information will come, but I did snap that save the date in the chat again yesterday. So, all right, guys, thanks so much. And thanks for bearing with my technical difficulties. Every time Windows does an update on my computer, my camera disappears, and now my mic has disappeared. So, all right, thanks, guys.